Hello, and welcome to another session of virtual gentle chair yoga with Keith Beasley. My name is Bati Blumenthal. I'm the branch supervisor of the Putterham location of the Public Library of Brookline. Virtual gentle chair yoga with Keith Beasley is sponsored by the Friends of the Brookline Public Library, who sponsor this program and programs like it. As always, participation in this online yoga program could result in injury. Not all exercises presented here are suitable for everyone. These exercises are not intended to substitute for proper medical care or advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any exercise program. The creators, teachers, and producers assume no responsibility for injuries from participation in this program. And with that, I give you Keith.
And let's start off, let's listen to a sound to start. So I have the sound of this is a singing bowl. So I'll just tap it a few times. Just please listen, sit up tall with good posture and diaphragmatically breathe. So think about the belly moving in and out with the breath. So always begin our yoga class with centering. And centering means really bringing the attention, centering the attention. So that means bringing it inwards, away from the things that are happening around us. So if there's any sounds around, we bring our attention inwards first, just to our body, feeling our body, feeling the feet on the floor, feeling our good posture as we sit up tall, and feeling the belly moving in and out with the breath. I like to close my eyes for this. And then I'm not distracted by anything that I see. Or I'm more able to bring my attention inwards. And we're going to stay with this for a few breaths, feeling an axial extension of the spine, a lifting, a floating up as we breathe in. And then as we exhale, we soften the face and eyes and relax the shoulders. So the inhalation creates this lifting up the body. And the exhalation is a softening. Keep the lift a little bit. Keep the spine lengthened, releasing as we exhale. And these are natural breaths. So it's a natural rhythm of the breath in and out. And it's important to focus in on our own rhythm. So even when you get a cue during this practice, to breathe or to breathe in or to breathe out, you don't have to be right on that cue. It's really just the idea of reminding us to be mindful of the breath. We won't hold our breath during this practice at all. It's just natural breath in and out. Perhaps thinking about balancing ease and effort as we breathe in. So that's another important aspect of Hatha yoga is we call it sthira and sukha. So those are Sanskrit terms, and sthira means say effort, and sukha means ease. So we want to balance what's happening in our body. If we're too effortful, we get tense and we create tension. We don't want that. And if we're too at ease, we turn into like a lump. and then our posture fails us and we become just sort of soft. So we don't want that either, so we need that balance. And you might notice as you breathe in and the belly expands, that also the lower ribs begin to expand a little bit. So it's as if a wave of breath is coming up from just below the navel, and it comes up the belly into the ribs. You might even feel a little lifting here in the heart. Most of the movement, or the biggest part of the movement, comes down in the belly, and then it gets smaller and smaller as you move up. But it's not necessary to get big movement on the upper part of the body. Of course, it's most important to maintain that balance of ease and effort. So if you find that there's tension, notice if there's any tension when you breathe in, and see if you can let go of some of the effort if you feel tension from breathing in. Sometimes we go back and forth too. We have a little too much effort and a little too much ease. And then we kind of go back and forth until we find a neutral spot. And then we become settled there. And that's the whole idea. The centering is to settle the body. And then that in turn settles our minds. There's that real connection between the breath and the nervous system, between the breath and the body, or the mind and the body. And let's add a little movement now. We'll bring the palms together so that they're even on each other. And we're going to inhale. And as we inhale, the hands float up on the inhalation, and then they circle around and down on the exhalation. And the palms are facing down as they float down. The hands are like parachutes. We want them to feel like they're floating down, and then they come together and they rise up, perhaps like a blade of grass growing kind of quickly, or some plant that's coming up out of the ground and quickly for a plant, but slowly rising up as you breathe in. And then the hands are parachuting down as we exhale. The shoulders are relaxed here. They go up a little bit as the hands go up. We want to keep them relaxed as best we can. The shoulder blades are moving. So as the hands rise up, the shoulder blades move in towards each other. They come a little closer to the spine. And the heart opens. So the heart is lifting. So the heart is right beneath the sternum, right in the center of the chest. Think about as you breathe in, how the heart lifts up. And see if you can find a rhythm with the breath and the movement. So there's some ease going on here and some effort. You might notice the hips rock a little bit forward and back, or maybe the sitting bones. So the sitting bones, we feel them underneath us, touching the chair. We feel the rocking back and forth on the sitting bones. And perhaps the chin is lifting up slightly and then going down slightly as the heart lifts forward. As we move one part of the spine, that has a ripple effect on the other parts. We can't help that. That's being human. And then bringing the hands down for a moment, pausing there for a minute. And now try this. Bring the hands out to the knees. Drape the fingers down over the knees. And let's try moving the heart forward and back without actually using the arms now. So I'm going to inhale, or as I inhale, I'm lifting the heart forward. And as I exhale, I'm moving the heart back. It's as if the center of the chest is moving back and forth between the shoulders. So inhaling and exhaling. So the shoulder blades are coming, as we inhale, the shoulder blades come together, and as we exhale, the shoulder blades spread apart, almost like wings behind us. And notice that the arms and the shoulders stay in about the same position. So the arms are straight, the shoulders don't really move very much, even though the heart's moving forward and back. I'd like to find some ease here with sort of a rocking of the heart forward and back. And you'll notice again, there's a little bit of rocking that's happening down with the hips. And perhaps the chin is lifting up and down slightly. And let's bring the hands back. And we're going to go the opposite way now. We're going to inhale, sit up nice and tall, lengthen the spine, and then go ahead and release the hands down. They float down like they're parachutes, and then flip the palms up as you inhale and come up. So we're going to circle the other way now. Circling the other way. The heart is still lifting or moving back and forth. So this work with the heart moving forward and back helps to bring mobility to the thoracic spine, the vertebra between the shoulder blades. And that's an area where, due to sitting a lot, working at the computer, sitting at a desk, a lot of times that area doesn't move very well. But these exercises that we're doing right now will help to bring more mobility there. The most important thing is to remember that we want ease of movement. So we have to be patient and practice this on a regular basis or something like it. And over time, over the days and weeks, things become more flexible there. And the ease of movement there translates into ease of movement in the rest of the spine, and sometimes can bring some relief to any discomfort that you might have in the shoulders or even in the lumbar spine. So keeping things moving is so important. Staying active and keeping things moving. There's been a lot of recommendations as we're stuck inside more than we have been in the past to take little breaks throughout the day. Let's sit up nice and tall. We'll do some cactus breaths here. And those little breaks can even be small, even just like 30 seconds of standing up and even just marching in place to get the legs moving, to get the body moving. Even this exercise, this cactus breath, if you happen to be sitting at your desk and you're sitting at the computer, bring the hands together and take a couple of breaths. Inhaling and exhaling and feel things moving. That's an important part. So our intention here is that we want to feel things moving. And bringing the hands down, let's roll the shoulders. If we can feel things moving, it helps. It gives us feedback that they can move a little bit more. We're able to move them a little bit more. If we can't feel things moving, it's pretty hard to get them to move, especially if things we don't use as much, like the thoracic spine. It tends to be it doesn't move as much. The lower spine, the lumbar spine moves more. The neck, you move that more, but the middle part, not so much. And then sitting up nice and tall, let's lift the chin. Let's go up and down. So we're going to start to bring a little more mobility to the cervical spine. And please don't drop the head too far back. We lift the chin up a little, but we want to keep the spine lengthened so the neck doesn't overbend behind. Think about keeping some space here in the front of the throat too. So we're not, the front of the throat, even though the chin's coming down, it's not collapsing. We want the front of the throat to feel open. We want there to feel some length in the spine, even as we're rocking the chin up and down. And then come back to a neutral position, and let's slowly turn the head from side to side. If you wanted to, you could even use your hand as a guide, sort of a sweeping motion back and forth, and let the head follow that. And you might even notice the shoulders move slightly as well, although I'm not trying to move the shoulders. Sometimes when we move, it's nice to let the body move, have a natural feeling to it. And sometimes we try to isolate things. Try the other hand if you've been going from side to side. So we get both arms a little bit. So sometimes we isolate certain parts of the body and we just move a certain area. And sometimes it's good to have that area move with the areas that it's attached to, more in a more natural kind of movement, more like what we do in an everyday kind of movement when we're doing stuff. And sitting up nice and tall, tipping the head from side to side. So if you wanted to experiment with that idea of a more natural kind of movement or a more isolated movement, you could do that here. So isolated would be letting the head tip, and the shoulders don't move very much here. I do want to keep the face pointed straight ahead though. So I try not to turn it. You could even imagine there was a, say something holding your nose like this, and you're tipping your head. You could even put your fingertip here and just tip tip your head and let your nose stay where it is. Or the other choice is you can lean and have a little bit more leaning so that the side of the body is bending a little bit more. You could even add your pillow like this. And working with the breath too is nice. Inhaling on the way up and exhaling as you relax and lean. Inhaling up and exhaling as you relax and lean. Inhaling up. Generally, we are inhaling when we're extending up or extending lengthwise. And then when we want to relax, we use the relaxation response from the exhalation. Our exhalation causes the body to relax. It's natural. That's a natural reaction from exhaling. And sitting up nice and tall, let's circle the head around. Imagine circling your nose around for this, like drawing a circle with your nose. You could even start small and do like a spiral. Begin to make the circle get bigger and bigger. And then whenever you're ready, you can change directions. And now start to make the circle get smaller and smaller. So the spiral is spiraling in. And sitting up nice and tall. A couple of cactus breaths here. And we're going to add a hug to it. So inhaling and hugging. So your hug, you can play with it about how much you wrap yourself up, from just holding the elbows like this, maybe the upper arms if that feels okay, or the outsides of the shoulders, or even just resting the hands on the shoulders like this, or even beginning to bring the hands back behind. So we'd like to do this without creating any tension. So we get nice movement, and it feels like the shoulder blades widen, they come apart as we hug ourselves, and they come back together as we breathe in on a cactus breath. Elbows no higher than the shoulders though on these. You could even be lower. There's nothing wrong with being lower with the elbows, depending on how your shoulders feel. And then sitting up nice and tall, let's roll the shoulders again. So rolling the shoulders is a great exercise anytime. It helps to break up the tension that sometimes happens between the shoulders and especially with the neck. So there's certain areas where we tend to have more tension, and the neck and the shoulder area and the upper back is a good one. And let's do one and then the other. So one and then the other. Go ahead and roll the shoulder back. Go ahead and roll the shoulder back. And now let's roll the shoulders forward. And now let's add a little bit more back, and then adding a little bit more arm if this feels okay for the shoulders, almost like a backstroke. As you bring the arm back, think about letting the body turn a little bit. So you can find that turn by moving the elbow back. Notice I'm going slowly here. So the elbow is moving back and my body is beginning to turn. Imagine the diagonal from the hip up to the shoulder up here. So there's like a lengthening across the body like this. And I have my arms. It's very important to be feeling comfortable when we're doing this. So we want the shoulder to feel comfortable. We want the belly to feel comfortable. And we want to be sitting up tall. So sometimes we lose a little bit of our lengthening when we do this. So we'd like to try to keep this feeling of lifting up of the spine, but balanced. So not over efforting. This is going to start to move the belly here. Let's bring the hands down. Try this. Let's bring the elbows. Move one elbow back and then the other elbow. And you can let your body turn. And this is one where you could let the head stay even on the shoulders or relative to the shoulders. Just leave it where it is. Maybe closing the eyes, not moving the neck. Or you could even keep looking straight ahead and move the elbow back while you're maintaining your head mostly straight ahead. It might turn a little bit. So now I'm actually getting turning down in the waist and also turning in the neck because my shoulder is turning and my neck is staying in the same place. So be mindful that everything should feel okay here. If you're starting to feel a little gummy around the neck or things aren't moving freely, then maybe you need to let the head rotate on top of the shoulders. So we'd like things to feel like they're moving well. That's an important part of our practice. If you feel like things are not moving well when you do something, then perhaps just take a rest for a moment and try the next exercise. And sitting up nice and tall, let's do our swimming, our crawl stroke now. So I'm getting that same movement of the elbow back, but now I'm reaching out and then across and coming down the outside of the leg here, just letting the hand float down the outside of the leg and letting the body turn. I get nice turning in the belly this way. Nice turning. I can even let if I was swimming, I can take my breath by turning the head a little bit more. So if you're familiar with breathing, and this we call this, I think they call it bilateral breathing. We breathe on each side. Usually with swimming, we're used to just doing one side at a time. Or I should say, we're used to one side, breathing on one side, turning the head just to one side, and then coming up nice and tall, taking a couple breaths, and then sliding forward in the chair. So we want to be near the edge of the chair, so the backs of the thighs are open. And then I'm going to start to circle around. As we circle and come forward, the bending is coming down at the waist. I'm looking out ahead so that I can keep the spine lengthened. Think about keeping the spine lengthened. And the same thing when I lean back. I'm not collapsing. Don't round the back like this. I'm keeping my spine lengthened and up. So we want to be mindful of how far forward and back we go when we do this exercise, so that we're still able to keep the spine lengthened. The more, if you want to go further back or further forward, it's more challenging to keep the spine lengthened. And we still want to do this with balancing that ease and effort that we were talking about. So if you're straining, then dial it back a little bit. Think about sitting up more. So this, sitting up when just making small circles with the shoulder. So my shoulders are moving like this in the same plane as the floor. And let's go the other way. If you want to make it more challenging, if this is too easy, you can stir with the hands. Stirring around, still keeping the spine long. You could even release the hands, have the hands circling around. So these are all progressively more challenging. Making sure that we can keep the spine. You really have to engage the belly here. So pause for a moment and tap on your belly here. We need this to be firm. You can even take your fingertips, feel the belly, feel it firm as you circle around. It especially gets firm as you lean back. Your support, it's like doing a sit-up. When we do a sit-up, the belly, it's really the belly that we need to do the work. If we start using the back, relying too much on the back, we have back problems. And then sitting up nice and tall. Let's lean from one side to the other. So start by just lifting the heel up and then lifting the whole foot up if that feels okay. And then you can even go a little higher if that feels okay. Perhaps think about being a little slower. It's more challenging to go slowly. We need to be able to keep the spine lengthened even slowly. And it makes it harder. If you want it more of a challenge, you can lift the knee up even higher. Notice how when you lift it up higher, there's a tendency for the back to start to round. So as you lift it up, see if you can keep the spine lifted more. This becomes really challenging to do that. And there's nothing wrong with just lifting the heel up and leaning as a way to engage the abdominal muscles and to extend the spine. So it's we're teaching our bodies to be seated and at the same time extend it up and have some freedom of movement. Let's dangle the hands like this. Just give the hands a little shake like this. So I'm shaking kind of softly. Think about it being softly, but the hands being relaxed and just giving them a little bit of shake. And the shoulders being relaxed as I sit up tall. And bring the hands. Let's do all the joints in the body. We're going to start by rocking the feet. So if you're looking sideways, the feet are going to start to rock forward and back. So think about the balls of the feet and the heels as if your feet were a rocking chair or the bottom of a rocking chair. So I can feel the underside of the feet touching the whole time, but it's moving from forward to back. And I can add the hands to this. So rocking the wrists forward and back too. So as the hands come forward, the fingers point up. And then when the hands come back towards the chest, the fingers kind of curl in. So there's a movement here in the wrist forward and back. See if you can make the foot and the wrist movement at the same rhythm. Keep the rhythm the same in both. So as the one lifts up on the foot, the fingers are coming forward and up. And then when the other part of the foot lifts up, the fingers are coming back and down. You can even add the chin if you wanted, and perhaps even a little pelvic tilting forward and back. So it's just a small movement in the spine here. But it can be fun. We have all these, when the movements work together, it brings a certain feeling of fluidity to the body, of unity to the body. And that's, when our body is working well, it's kind of like if you like to dance and you get out and you're dancing and the dancing feels good. It feels, everything is moving. It just feels good. And we're going to circle the ankles. Make sure that the knees stay in place here. So you can start with the hands on the knees. So the lower part of the legs really aren't moving very much. We're not circling at the knees. We're just circling the ankles. If you need to slow it down just so the ankles are moving. And let's add the wrists to it. And sitting up tall. So use the back of the chair here if you need it. We'll want to be able to maintain the length. Let's go the other way. So the spine is still lengthening. The belly is engaged. Belly's engaged. For most of the exercises that we do, or for many of them, the belly will be engaged. We want to engage it enough to provide support, but not engage it so much that it creates tension and everything is just sort of after a while, it gets stuck. We want to avoid the muscles getting stuck. Because when they get stuck, then we have to unstick them. And while it can be done, it's a lot easier to not do that. And let's lift up and go back down. So we're going to go back and forth here. The toes are pointing up. So they go from the feet go from a relaxed position on the floor. And when they lift up, the toes are pointing up towards the ceiling, which means they really start to come back as the heel presses away. So there's some movement in the front of the ankle here. There's some flexion in the front of the ankle. And we need to keep the spine lengthened. So keep a little bit of effort. Perhaps as you lift the foot up, press down with the other foot. The other leg is pressing down to help support the spine. So by pressing down with this foot, right, this leg here, we can provide a little support for the back, so it's a little bit easier to sit up. That's the idea anyway. As if the lifting or the pressing down in the foot is traveling up the body and lifting the whole body up. You could even think about moving the shoulder blades back here. You could even, if you wanted, bring the hands behind you like this, or even bring them to the back of the chair or the side of the chair And notice how that helps to lift the heart, and then the hands on the chair help to support the shoulders, which creates a little bit more lift. So anything we can do to help lift, if this is too easy and you want more of a challenge, add your arm to it. So we have an arm going up with the leg. If that's still too easy, you can add 2 arms and 1 leg. Being mindful that keeping the spine lengthened. So as you reach up, see if it feels like the spine is lengthening at the same time. Like there's some lightness. If it feels heavy, it's probably too much. We want it to feel light, like it's lifting up. And of course, you could also, and this is probably best using the buttocks towards the back of the chair. You could lift up with both legs and both arms like this. Keeping the belly active here. So very good firmness here to help support the back. And actually, I'm actually using the back of the chair. I'm going to slide all the way back so that my buttocks is against the back of the chair. I'm wiggling it now against the back. And then that back of the chair supports me, even though I'm not leaning backwards per se. I'm not going like this and leaning way back. I'm reaching up and using the back for a little support, that little extra. So we had a lot of ways. This is the most basic. 1 leg, and then we have 1 leg and 1 arm. And it doesn't matter whether or not the arm is on the same side or you did the opposite side. It's kind of personal preference. Or we had 2 legs. You could even do 2 legs with just without the arms. Or you could do 2 legs and 2 arms, or 2 legs and 1 arm. So this is a great exercise that if you're seated, if you have to sit at a desk and you need to take a little break, bring the hands to the side of the chair and just lift up the foot. This is a great way to stretch the hamstrings and the calf on the back of the leg. And these areas tend to get shorter when we sit a lot. So when we sit like this, these muscles are relaxed and they shorten versus when they're extended like this. So if you have to sit for a long time, give yourself a break by extending the leg. And you can do this without anybody seeing it, unless you have somebody right across and you don't want to kick them, but usually there's room under a desk. You could even do this if you're stuck on an airplane, even if you don't have, your legs aren't too long, you can sometimes just stick your leg out under the seat in front of you. But finding little ways to stretch the hamstrings. And when the hamstrings are stretched a little more, it helps to release the lower back. There's definitely a connection between tight hamstrings and a tight lower back. Sitting up nice and tall. Let's do some more sun breaths, we call these. Inhaling and around. So we're going to do a few more traditional yoga poses. We're going to start with triangle pose. So sitting up nice and tall. So a triangle pose, we slide more towards the front of the chair. And then we can either have the feet pointed a little bit out with the legs bent like this, or we can straighten the legs like this. So if you're doing triangle pose standing, the legs would be straight. So I'm going to show it like this, but depending on how you feel, especially if you feel unbalanced like this, try it like this, and that'll give more stability. So we inhale, and then we begin to reach to the side as we exhale, Then the hand comes down to the leg like this. And then we come back up and we go back and forth like that. The bending is coming right about where the leg meets right around the above the hip. So the bending is right at the torso and the leg. And you can add the breath to it. Inhaling, coming up, exhaling down. And you have a choice here too. You could extend like this, exhale, and even come back up with the arm extended. Exhale, inhale, exhale. You'll notice if you keep the arms up like this, it's harder for the shoulders. You're going to have more work going on. It's going to be more aerobic. So be mindful of that. And if you need a little bit less, let the hand come down and rest here. It's a little bit easier. And if you need even more, if that's too much, you can bring the hands to the hips and practice like this. Or even just bring the hands and let the hands slide down the leg like this. You'll find that if the hands are down, it's easier, less work for the shoulders, and overall less work for the body. So if you need that, go ahead and do it that way. Always thinking about, how does it feel what I'm doing? Does it feel okay for me? You can always add more with practice. Practice over time. We get stronger, we get more able. And if you keep practicing regularly, then over time, you can do a little bit more. So inhaling, sitting up nice and tall. Let's do cactus breaths here. Inhale and exhale. Give a little hug. See if you can feel the thoracic area being a little bit more fluid as we've warmed up now. Without forcing, though. I'm nice and easy. It's like this flowing. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Almost like a bird flapping its wings, or a dragon flapping its wings like this. And then sitting up nice and tall. Let's do triangle one more time. So I'll show it. I'll demonstrate it standing this time. So you're welcome to repeat it either seated like this. Remember, the legs can be like this, or if you'd like to do it standing, it's always good to have a chair handy if you're doing it standing. So I won't keep it in the front, but sometimes right in the front like this is a good spot for it, because you can always even just do one arm like this with triangle pose. But I'll move it so you can see. Stepping the feet apart if you're standing, and then extending the arms. Notice the shape looks really similar. And then exhaling and coming down. Inhaling up and exhaling. So I'm going to go back and forth. So when you inhale and come up, think about extending the spine up. So there's a lengthening up the center of the body. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Couple more, one more on each side. And exhale, and then inhale, come on up, lower the arms down, and then bring the feet back together. And the same thing about using the arms and the shoulders with standing triangles, the same as for seated. It makes it a little bit more challenging. So keep that in mind. If you want to do standing, you could always start with standing like this and bending at the hips, and then even adding one arm, and then finally going to two arms with practice. Sitting up nice and tall, take a couple of breaths. Let's do cactus breaths. Inhale, exhale. Just swinging the arms, lifting and opening the chest. Inhale one more time. And exhale, come back. So we're going to do extended side angle, we call this. So we'll sit up nice and tall. It looks very similar to triangle. We start in a similar way, but we'll have both feet with the underneath the knees like this. And then we extended side angle is inhaling, sitting up tall, adding the arms. And then as we inhale, the right arm is going to come up and the right leg is going to come out, and the left arm comes down to the leg like this. And then we're going to come back up and bring the leg back in at the same time. So we get this movement, inhaling up, of the arm and the leg on the same side. So in the beginning, think about going nice and slowly. And the reason it's called extended side angle is we're at an angle, and notice that the whole side of the body is extending. Think about being near the front of the chair for this too. So if you're too far back in the chair, you can do it, but it's a little bit more challenging, or it may interfere more with the space between the thighs. You can experiment and see how far back you can go, or how far back you need to, or how far forward you need to come. So let's sit up nice and tall. So let's try that again. Sitting up tall, and then inhale and reaching up. That lower hand provides some support for the upper body. And notice that I'm not collapsing, I'm not falling over like this. See how that's a bending, everything's all bent. I want to sit up tall, and then as I extend out, the spine is still lengthening. There's a lengthening here rather than a bending and a collapsing to the side. So that's important, because this is still an extension of the spine, and it's not a lateral bend of the spine. And then sitting up nice and tall and exhaling. But let's do a lateral bend of the spine. We haven't actually done that yet. So we're coming up, bringing the hands like this, reaching up. Think about lengthening first. And you could also, if you wanted, if you're tired of being seated, you could do this standing. You could also do this standing. So if you are doing it standing, have your chair nearby or have support nearby in case you need it. I'm going to start by lifting up towards the ceiling, or reaching up towards the ceiling first. So I get a nice lengthening along the side of the body, just like with extended side angle, but now I'm going to start to add a little bit more of a curving of the spine to the side. And notice it's curving, not collapsing. We're bending here, but we don't want to collapse. We still want some length happening on each side, but with some bending to the side. And if you start to feel, if you need more support, try a slightly wider stance, and that gives a little bit more broader base. So when you lean more to the side, you have more, your center of gravity, you're going to have more support. So if you need more, you could even, if you wanted, just like with extended side angle, you could have the arm come down for support. It's very important to find what works for us personally and see if you can remember it too. So as we practice and we do similar poses or the same poses over time, we begin to figure out what really works for us. What is our body need right now? And then sitting up nice and tall. Let's do some cactus breaths. So swinging the arms open, almost like you're throwing open the window. It's kind of cold to do that right now, but although today is better, it's gray. It's a silver day today, but it's not as cold. So we should be thankful for that. It's not snowing, at least. Or we're not snowed in, which I guess is a good thing. And sitting up nice and tall. So we're going to tree pose next. We'll do it first seated. So we'll do it twice, and then I'll demonstrate it standing. So remember, it's your choice. You can do it seated both times. You can do a seated and standing, or if you know standing, you can go right to standing. Sitting up tall in our seated mountain pose, and then stepping the foot out, and then bring the foot back for a moment. So when you step out, be mindful about the rest of the body. So think about keeping the rest of the body relatively unmoving. It doesn't have to be stiff, but step out and keep the torso facing the front. So there's this nice opening that happens right in the inside of the thigh here. And most of the weight, the weight shifts onto this side of the body. I still need to keep the spine lifted, so I'll need to think about that, lifting the spine up and then bringing the foot in like this. You could have the toes down on the floor, or you could even lift the whole foot up and put it on the inside of the chair and press the press the sole of the foot against the inside of the chair. And then extending, reaching, lengthening the spine up with your branches. Whether you're like this, or you're like this, or you're like this, or some other way that you like to do tree. The most important thing is to be able to relax, to extend the spine, and to feel balanced with some ease. And then whenever you're ready, you can lower the arms down and then bring the foot back. Let's do the other side, sitting up tall in mountain pose, and then stepping. Do that a couple of times and come back and step out and back, and one more time, step out, and then find that spot for the sole of your foot, and then add the arms, lengthening the spine, torso's facing towards the front, and thinking about as a tree would be rooted in the ground and growing upwards towards the sky. So there's a bit of lightness in the trunk of the tree, even as the bottom of the tree feels rooted in the ground. Whenever you're ready, you can lower the arms down and come back and take a couple of breaths, a cactus breath again, swinging the arms open and giving ourselves a little hug, or flapping your wings, however you want to think about it. Visualizing or imagining something, some natural phenomenon when we do movements, is a way to help feel like it's a little more ease with the movement. So anything we can do to facilitate that, to feel like it's easier. Now, so you can do that again seated, or if you want, you can do it standing. If you're going to do it standing, if you need any help with balance, please have a chair handy, or even have two chairs. You could have one on each side if you needed it for balance. You could even have 4 chairs, one in the front, 2 on the sides, and 1 behind you for balance. And if you can't do that right now, and you want to practice tree another time, it's a nice way to practice. Or even standing with the wall behind you, so that you're supported in case you were to go backwards, you would bump against the wall. But we still want to maintain our lengthening of the spine, our mountain pose as we stand up. Roll the shoulders back, release the arms down. So there's a firmness in the belly, a firmness in the buttocks, the gluteal muscles behind us, and a firmness in the quadriceps here. So there's a lifting of the kneecaps with the quadriceps. Think about pressing the thighs back towards the wall behind you. So that would look like this. If I bend my knees slightly, so you can see I'm pressing my thighs back, and that's going to help lift the kneecaps up with the thighs. And at the same time, I bring the belly, the navel moves back towards the spine ever so slightly. That's going to support here. And the buttocks squeeze together gently. So there's a firmness here, a firmness, and a firmness. And this supports our core. So these muscles in this area give us a firm and stable core. And that's what we need for these standing poses. So tree pose. So firm your core up, belly, gluteal muscles, quadriceps, and then go ahead and step. Just like when we were seated, we step the foot out, and then we bring the sole of the foot on the inside of the calf here. And if you need to, you can have your hand or your fingers on a chair. Try not to lean against the chair. Notice that I'm touching the chair, and it helps give me information for my balance, but I'm still vertical. My center of gravity is in about the same place. It also helps give me a little confidence in case I'm nervous about balancing. And then I can add my arms and standing up nice and tall, raising my gaze, raising my thoughts. Remember to breathe. And if you start to lose your balance, you can always bring your hand down or bring your foot down and come back again. And let's do the other side. Standing up nice and tall in mountain pose, engaging the belly, firmness here, firmness in the behind, firmness in the quadriceps, right in the front, extending the spine up, stepping the foot out, and then bringing the sole of the foot on the inside of the calf, and then adding the arms, extending up, raise your gaze, raise your thoughts. And whenever you're ready, you can bring the arms down, and let's just swing the hands for a moment. Or swing the coat sleeves, we call this. As if we had a coat and we were swinging the sleeves. And this is standing. You're welcome to do it standing. You can do the same thing seated. Same thing. Be mindful of the chair if you're seated so you don't bang into it. And then we're going to all settle into our chair. We're going to come into our final relaxation. You can call that Shavasana. We want to feel supported. So go ahead, feel free to use the back of the chair here. Slide back, lean back ever so slightly so that the back of the chair is supporting us. Find a spot to rest the hands, whether they're on the legs or they're in your lap, doesn't really matter. Or if you have arms on your chair, they could be resting on the arms. Want the shoulders to relax here. And we're going to focus on the breath. First, by noticing the breath, not doing anything to change it, just notice it coming in and out of the body. Notice the belly moving in and out with the breath. Relaxing the face and the eyes. Softening the shoulders, the arms and the hands. As we begin to watch the breath and relax the body, the breath begins to slow down on its own, naturally. And the more we relax, the more the breath begins to slow down, even a little bit more. It's important to let go of most of the effort here. We still have a slight bit of effort to keep our good posture. Not too much, though. That's why we're using the back of the chair. Relaxing the jaw and the tongue and the throat. So this will complete the formal part of our class. If you can spend a little bit more time with your Shavasana, 5 or 10 minutes is ideal. And just focusing on the breath, keeping good posture and relaxing. Relaxing the body and relaxing the mind. Relaxing the mind. So thank you all very much, and I'll see everyone next time. Namaste.